Hello, I'm Carol Wishern. I'm a potter. I've been doing pottery for 20 plus years professionally. In 2001, I've started with angels, and in 2001 I was chosen as the artist for an international advertising firm. They choose artists from all over the world and then send the angels all over the world. And I was their artist for 2001, and they've been doing this since 1953. All of my angels have names, so this particular angel is named Rose. And people ask me how I name my angels. My angels are named when they come out of the kiln. Their name just kind of pops into my head. One of my favorite angels is this one, and her name, real quick to tell you, is Wise Woman of Comfort. And she is taken from the ideas of the Anasazi, which are the ancient ones in Colorado. And they believe that if you decorate your home with things from nature, it will release nature's spirit into your soul. And so she has real pine needles that are attached to her wing afterwards, and then a dream catcher in the other wing. And the dream catcher is always, if you have bad dreams, they will be caught in the dream catcher, and the first rays of the morning sun will dispel it. And then on the bottom are all the things I wish for the people who own her. And there's a spiral, which stands for life, emergence, and water. There's a blanket for comfort. The interlocking seas stand for friendship. The badger paw stands for strength. The spirit symbol stands for faith. The hand is that it's made by me, by hand, and the things I wish for you are. And then the badger paw is good health. So this is the bear paw, this is the badger paw. But anyway, so those are the things, and again, it's all pottery, and it's something that I made that's kind of unique. Then we moved back. I grew up, I laughingly tell people I grew up as a potter in Colorado, and when we moved back to Missouri, I fell in love with the leaves, big leaves that you can get on the trees in Missouri. And so then I started making functional pieces of pottery from a leaf. And so the real leaf is pressed into the clay when it's wet. It's fired and bisked the first time, and then the leaf burns off, leaves its impression, and then I glaze it and fire it again. They're fired to about 2,200 degrees. So they're kind of fun, and they're fun and functional and do lots of different things. One of the other things I do is I do all kinds of faces. So here's one of my new ones. And again, in Colorado, I was known for my faces and masks, and people would come and look for them. And this is called Abounding Spirits, excuse me. And so it's just something that's fun. They're all different. A lot of them have, again, they all have names. A lot of them have names that kind of, like this one up here, I don't know if you can see it, it's called the Music Man. And so it's just kind of fun because he's whistling. So he whistles while he works. And that's one of my faces. So they're all over. The other thing I do is pots for plants. And again, we do a big show in Colorado with the cactus. And so people love to have big pots. And I use all different colors of clay. Like this one, it's taken from, I use 6 different colors of clay and wedge them together and then add them to the pot to give it decoration. So it's just kind of different and unique. My coasters. This wonderful clay body. These are coasters. They're, this clay body, it won't hold water. It will melt before I can get it to hold water. Again, I use real leaves and grasses that grow outside of my studio, and I press it into the clay when it's wet. They burn off. They leave their impression, and the water just absorbs right down in this clay. You'll never have better coasters in your life because they work so well. And there's just all kinds of wonderful pieces. This is just a dish you can use for food. I mean, all my dishes are food safe. If they're functional, they're food safe. So they can be used however you want.
What about the turtle?
The turtle. The turtle is actually, you can use him as you know, as a light, as you can see here, but he also does have a hole in the bottom, so you can plant him with plants. So he's just kind of a fun little guy. So my art has a lot of whimsy in it. I'm not a traditional potter because my pots aren't like traditional potters. It's really different. So I hand build everything. I don't wheel throw. So all my pieces start off as one of a kind. I find hand building to me is much more creative and spontaneous than putting something on the wheel. So I like to do that. My ikabanas are great because you can put just a few flowers and you don't have to strip your whole garden to have flowers out. And it has a flower frog down in the bottom that holds the flowers upright. So they look really good in that respect as well. Let's see, what else? Oh, my son and daughter have both just recently gotten married, or are getting married, and that's what they wanted as their wedding gift, was dishes made by mom. So a lot of these square dishes were the initial test market for what we picked out for my daughter's dishes. So there's a lot of different ones, different designs. And then my son, there's a lot of round ones like this that were the beginnings of his design. So that was quite a compliment to me that my kids wanted me to make their dishes for their wedding gift. So that was pretty cool. And I use a lot of different glazes. So no two pieces ever look alike. Like this is a May apple. And you've got the different glazes where they pull together and they blend. Oh, there's one of the pieces that... Okay, this is the one, I kind of showed you one of the other ones. I put 6 different colors of clay together, and they're the natural clay bodies. And I wedge them very lightly together, and I slab them, I put them into a slab, let it dry overnight, and it looks like this. It looks rather boring if you look at the inside. But then I have this tool I use, and I take and I cut it away, and it leaves this beauty. And every time you see one of these, you see an individual cut on the clay body. And then what I do when I cut those off, I take them and turn them upside down and add them to this, and that's how this piece is made. So they're real different. They're real unique. And again, these are pots for plants, so they're very functional, and plants are very happy and healthy in my pots. They love it. All of my angels are just a little bit different. This one's name is Marin's. That's named after my mother and my mother-in-law is where her name came from combined. But she's a little red hat lady, so there's kind of fun. I do a lot with, I have a lot of people who like the pink ribbon, and this one's name is Faith. And and I donate a portion of the proceeds from these to the Cancer Society. I have some that, like she has a little flower. Everyone's one of a kind. All of my angels, there's no two alike. Even when, like her name is Teresa, but no H is how it's spelled. And even when I did those angels for that company, when I had produced like 2,000 angels they were all very similar, but each one was handmade, so each one was unique, which makes them different. This one is raku fire. Do you know what raku firing is? Raku is the pieces are put into a hot kiln. They're fired to just under 1,800 degrees. They're pulled out of the kiln and put in with stuff that'll burn. And then sealed. So they're starved for oxygen, and that's what causes all these pretty colors to pop out. If I put this in a regular kiln, it would look like denim without the raku firing. So it's got copper in the glaze that causes that to pull out. And the bottom is always left unglazed. And the process comes from Japan. And the Japanese believe that's how the spirit enters the body of the piece, by the unglazed bottom. So raku pieces are always left unglazed. And they always turn out different. This is another piece that's raku fired, but I put white wings on her, but her glaze just turned out completely different. It was whatever the raku gods decide to give me on any particular day. So, and her name is Lindy. So that's the angels. They're and this is very similar to the one I told you I made a lot of. And then I do things, you know, like with this one where she's looking at a baby for mothers, for new mothers. I don't have any here. Oh, I do. This design came, I found out 2 of my nieces were pregnant on the same day. And so I made them each mom angel, mom to be angel. And I called it mom in parentheses. So those are kind of fun. It's a great gift for soon-to-be moms. So that's, you know, and they're all, again, if you look at them, they're all finished a little bit differently. Like this one, I let the natural native clays show. This one in the back has a flag in it, and her name is Liberty. So they all change, and sometimes I'll do hearts. Um, I just recently got back from Ireland, and I gave him an angel with his daughter's name in it, and it has a little American flag in it, so he knows it's from the USA. But his daughter's name is Cree, which stands from the heart, so that's why I did the heart and the kind of thing. So those are my babies. I call my angels my babies. Always have, because they're made from my heart. All my pottery is made from my heart. I mean, it's stuff that I do. I'm not a potter because I make a lot of money at it. I'm a potter because I have to create, and it comes from my heart. And so all my pieces come from my heart. They're not just made, they're made with love. So I don't know how else to say that. I know that probably sounds corny, but
No, I'm not on camera.
Is Mary here?
Yes, she is. All right, I'm Mary Pura, and I've been an artist for most of my life, but I have really been getting at it since I've been retired and had more time. I've painted in watercolors and oils, and took art in college, but my mother said you won't make any money doing art, so it's been a hobby, and it's been a good pastime for me. I've enjoyed it. These are my florals here, and I love doing birds. That's something I do a lot of. But I've also collected antiques, so the perfect thing for me was to be in a shop with art and antiques. I did a show down in Louisiana, and so I did some birds in the bayou. And down here, I have one with an alligator hunters. And one young man that had a gallery here is down there now. He invited me to come down and do a show. And was very pleased with it. But as you can see, my work is quite varied. Whatever I feel like painting, I paint. It's not always the same things. Claire Condon, when she lived here, got me doing the watercolors. I had done mainly oil and took most of my classes in oil painting. But she got me going on watercolors, and so I have done quite a few of those as well. And a lot of them are from things I've seen in my travels. This was inspired, this man in the canoe was inspired by the lake down at Perryville, in Perry County Lake. My husband and I used to go down there, and thought it was just off my head, but that was what inspired it. And these on the sea are when I visited Claire up in Gloucester, Massachusetts. But when I go see her, it'll be painted in watercolor. And this saxophone player is Dennis Bosman. He played at the Oris, and I took his photo and asked him if I could do his picture, and I haven't told him that I did it, and I should tell him that I got it done. It was the Bosman twins. They both play saxophone. He was playing the little one. I don't know what they call that little one, but we got music across the street. tried something new, Ed, and just took a class from Julie Snidel doing some encaustics. These two, one is an encaustic over an oil painting I did, and the other is just insetting the wine bottles in and the grapes. It's quite an interesting process. It's fun. It was just something for me to try. So I've done a few of those. Julie is quite accomplished at it. And I've had fun doing those too. Actually painting with melted wax. And then you use a heated blower to move the wax. And this is one here. And there's a little one with a cat there. And this is another one over an oil painting I did down there on the floor with the deer. It's just fun for me to experiment and try different media. This one is not mine, it's Roscoe Misselhorn's. The little encaustic is mine. That was from a watercolor I did, and I didn't care for it particularly, so I cut out the flowers and put it in with the wax. The one I got up for the drawing tonight is in here. It's a scene from when I was in Colorado. Up to Long's Big High Ridge Drive, and that meadow was full of flowers.
Well, Ed, we're doing this month. It's the June Art Walk, and we have an exhibit of photos from both the flood of 1973 and the flood of the Christmas flood. We call it of 1982. The crest, I think, that year was December the 11th. Here at Merchant Street Gallery, we're doing a 3-month series of flood-related photos. Last month, we did images from the flood of 1943, and I just explained this month. Then next month, the July Art Walk, we're going to do images from the flood of 1993. Plan to do an exhibit of some of the stills from that era, that year. Also concurrent with that, we hope to re-release the flood of 1993 video that we did called Saving St. Genevieve, documentary of the flood of 1993 has only been available as a VHS, and I'm working on re-editing from the original footage now that year's flood in a DVD format. So it'll be available sometime this fall. Not quite sure when yet, but certainly before Thanksgiving and Christmas. The pictures behind me are images from the flood of 1982, the black and whites. They are shots from, I was working at the St. Genevieve Herald at the time, so they generously let me use those negatives from then and to put together this exhibit. If you happen to catch any of the artwork in the background, those watercolors belong to Betty Garrity, who is one of the co-founders of our present-day Artists Guild. I was maybe going to give you some information about the flood of 1982. I just remember there being Christmas lights on some of the levees, all reflecting across the water. Made for kind of an eerie sort of flood fight that year. Folks don't have to run off.
Help yourself to the snacks. And wine.
That image that you're looking at right now is, of course, Main Street, corner of North Main and Washington. Hopefully we'll never see water like that on Main Street again, now that we've got our federal levee out there protecting us. But there's some familiar buildings.
It's called Bird and Blue, and it is just very detailed. It's watercolor, it's pen and ink. I draw a lot of inspiration from children's books, and I love illustration. One of my favorite children's book illustrators is Carson Ellis, so you'll see kind of a lot of influence in some of my work from her. Her and her husband, Colin Malloy, they produced a book called Wildwood, and he's the lead singer for the Decemberists, so she does a lot of his covers for his albums. But anyway, I draw a lot of inspiration from her. But anyway, this is my Bird and Blue. Next, I have my Canopy, and this was a piece that I did, and it was, my muse was my aunt. There was a photograph from her when she was a child, and she was sitting holding a kitten, and so I used the photograph to kind of compose the picture. But I love nature, and I love trees and the mountains. I lived in Colorado for a little while, so this is kind of where I drew inspiration from my time in Colorado there. And then these are House 1 and House 2. And these were done from old vintage doll houses. I drew from those. They were actual houses that kids used to play, with their dolls and their little toys, and I couldn't believe that they actually had houses that were so detailed. So I looked at those and I drew them from the sculptures of the houses. And this piece is actually pulled from a page from the Sketchbook Project. The Sketchbook Project is actually based in Brooklyn, New York, and it is a traveling sketchbook library that goes around the country. It even goes overseas. Anybody can submit a sketchbook. Once you submit a sketchbook to the sketchbook library, it goes in a permanent file, and then it goes on tour around the country. And I submitted a sketchbook, and I turned it in last month, so it's theirs. I no longer have it. But this is a commission piece that was pulled from the sketchbook for a girl in Kansas City, and it's going to go with her daughters. And this piece is called A Safe Place to Land. Again, it's inspired from folk art, Carson Ellis, she has a huge play in that too. But mostly like folk art illustrations is where I grab my inspiration from. And this piece here, this is called Marguerite's Escape, and this is about a little girl who lives in a French village, and at night she rides a bird and she escapes to the sky. And I just love this piece. This is watercolor and pen and ink, and it has on the banner that that the bird is carrying. It tells a little bit of the story. It's a poem across the banner about her escaping to the sky above the town at night. This piece is called Venus. I love anything that has to do with Venus, the famous painting. So this is kind of my ode to her with the flowers. And again, it's just pen and ink and watercolor. And this is another illustration that I did. It's called Snowden's Secret. And I'm not sure if a lot of people have gotten it, but it has to do with what's going on in the local media world media right now with Snowden and how he's fled the country, and he has a bunch of secrets that the U.S. is, upset about him exposing. So when I did this piece, it actually wasn't intended, but I drew this little mouse mole creature, and he has a briefcase, and I just looked at it, and it looks, he's escaping. It's Snowden with his secrets, and he's, in this underworld of, kind of the thicket and the flowers, and he's escaping, into some far distant land that's below with his secrets. This piece is called Crest, and I took an old vintage book and it's a children's book, and I took all of the pages out of it and I Mod Podged it to board, and then I did the flowers in watercolor, and then I used vintage buttons from my grandmother who used to sew, and I put those all over the board as well. So I really love this piece. This is just a lot of fun, and I just love how the pages are yellowed and worn, and the whole vintage aspect of the entire piece.